I'm Shane, and this is Relative Time, and I'm here with the very first state of the collection for the channel. And this is a long time coming. I think I've been on for almost 2.5 years now, and I haven't done one yet. And honestly, the biggest reason why I haven't is my collection's kind of gotten out of hand over the last few years. Even though I sold a number of watches late last year, I still have a bunch. So one of the things I'm going to do this year is think about how to pare it down even further. Which is why I decided to do a state of the collection now, just to really document what I have, as well as maybe get some advice from all of you on what I should keep, get rid of, and maybe what I should look at getting in the future. Now, because there are a lot of watches, and a lot of them I already have reviews on, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each one. Maybe just talk about what I like about it, and maybe kind of highlight what I'm thinking about it. So the way I'm going to present this is I've divided my collection into 3 different categories by type. The first is going to be your military type watches, which is really your field and aviation, followed by more casual and dress style watches, and lastly we have the ever-growing diver collection. So let's just cut to the chase and start off with the military watches. These are easily some of my favorite watches, and a lot of them were in that top 10 video for 2019 I had out a few months ago. So let's start off by taking a look at my Hamilton Khaki King with a champagne dial. It's lightweight, easy to read, and very comfortable. And because of this dial and the 80-hour power reserve, I think it's one of my most versatile watches. So when I do travel, this is one that usually goes with me, as it looks just as good hanging out as it does at a nice dinner. Along the same lines, we have the Vaer Heritage Dark. It's a simple quartz watch with a classic field watch look. But with 100 meters of water resistance, it's also one good-looking versatile watch. In terms of quality, I think this is still one of the best ones I've seen under $200. Now on the opposite end of that price range, we do have a newcomer, which is the cream-colored Alpinist. And I did an unboxing of this a few weeks ago, and a review is still coming. So I don't want to talk about it too much, except I do want to show off just how good this thing looks on a bracelet. It's just amazing. And as long as we are talking about Japanese stunners, here's another newcomer, which is the Explorient, which is more officially known as the Orient Star Outdoor. I still really love this one, and I seem to appreciate it more and more every time I wear it. So it's one I highly recommend if you can find it. Now, since the review I have been wearing it on its stock strap, but I recently swapped it back to one of the other ones I picked up, which is this green ostrich number, and I think I'll keep it on this for a while. One thing you will notice is that I don't have a lot of chronos, and that might be something I should change. But here is my only Mecha Quartz one, as well as my only Panda, and it's an Undone Type 20, and this is one that they did customize for me with a Relative Time logo on the top and the back. So because of that, it's also one I'll never part with. However, this one is one I keep going back and forth on whether I should keep it. It's the Filson Mackinaw by Shinola. It's hard to believe that I reviewed this 2 years ago, and for the longest time it was my go-to quartz watch. But nowadays I do go months between wearing it. Yet every time I do, I remember what I liked about it. And yes, it is quartz, and yes, it is a Shinola, as well as being a bit oversized for a field watch, but there's just something about it I love. Now, while I do go back and forth on the Mackinaw, the next 2 are definite keepers, and they're also both in my top 10 list. First is my Glycine Airman GMT, and this is one that usually goes with me when I fly, not just because it's a GMT, but because it's one that really fits my style. It's good looking, highly functional, if not overly complicated. The bracelet could be better, but that's why it's usually not on it. I usually have it on a Zulu or the sailcloth strap. And last in this category is my favorite watch by far, and that's the Akura Wayfarer prototype. If you're not familiar with the story, it's a bit long, and I'll have a link down below to it. Unfortunately, there are only a handful of these in the world, so it's not one you can just go pick up. But I absolutely love this thing, not only because of the look, but also the details in the dial, and it just fits like a glove on its stock bracelet. So onto the casual and dress watches, and let's start things off with the watch that started this channel, which is my Timex Waterbury. And in some ways, this probably could have been included in the military category, but I decided to throw it in here. Now, I don't wear this too much these days, but I don't think I'd ever get rid of it as long as I have relative time. Next, we have the first watch I ever bought myself, and that was when I was in college. It's a solar-powered Pulsar, and I think I did a whole video on this when it turned 20 years old. And along the same lines, we have my titanium Seiko Kinetic, which I bought right after college, and at this point, it's probably 20 years old as well. This is a watch I wore almost every day at work for almost a decade, and it's got the scars to prove it. And as long as we are talking older watches, I'll show you this one, and it might shock some of you to see a Movado. And I don't think I've ever showed this one off, but I have talked about it a few times. This one was actually my dad's, and it's one of the few things I still have of his. And unfortunately, it is dead at this point, but it's one I've been working on trying to bring back to life. Next up is my Orient V2 Gen 2 Bambino, and a lot of you probably saw the review of this a while ago. This is one that I still love the design of, and I don't think I've seen anything quite like it, at least near this price. For the longest time, this was my main dress watch, but to be honest, I haven't been wearing it near as much. And that's all because of this watch, which is my white dial Vario Empire. This is one I showed off in my top 10 video, and I did review a silver prototype a while ago. This is one that I really love the prototype, but I talked myself out of jumping the Kickstarter. But it's one that really stayed with me, and when the opportunity to buy this one popped up, I jumped on it. And I'm really glad I did. I really love this watch, and this is one of my favorite handsets on any of the watches I've seen. Although this is my second favorite dress watch, and it's also another Vario. And it's this Tanzanite Blue Eclipse, and this is a watch that is really hard to photograph, but it looks absolutely stunning in person. This is also one that's pretty rare. There are a number of Eclipse colorways, but Vario only made 2 of these. This is one I got just before the holidays, and I got it by winning it in a silent auction that Vario had put up to benefit a local hospice. Next is one of my other chronographs, and it's a Bulova Curv. And not only is the case curved to fit your wrist, but so are the hands and even the circuit board. I got this one late last year, and I never quite got around to reviewing it. So if you are interested in it, let me know in a comment below. The first curve came out a while ago, and while I thought it was cool, it was also pretty expensive. So this is one of the second set of curve models, and it's much more affordable. And I just happened to run across this one on eBay, and curiosity got the better of me. This is one I might sell, but I do need to decide if I review it first. The next 2 are the only Chinese specials I have in my collection, and the first is a Cadisen Conquest homage. And this is one that I wound up modifying and putting on these Sin-style aviator hands, which really I just love how this thing turned out. And it turned out so well that one of the AliExpress stores actually kind of stole the image and put it on their Instagram page, saying that it was a limited edition special coming. The other Chinese special is also a Cadisen, and it's the one that I call the Imperial. Really, I still love this watch, especially as cheap as it is, and I've never seen anything quite like it, which is kind of rare for these Chinese watches. Now, I wish the lume was just a little bit better, but it's still the most accurate watch I've ever seen, not to mention it's just really comfortable and has a cool casual look. Now next, we have another watch you can't go out and buy, and it's one of the prototypes for the Comet Chronograph. This is one I reviewed when their Kickstarter went live, but unfortunately they didn't quite make it. And that's really a pity, as the style isn't really for everyone, but it's still one of the best dial and hands I've ever seen, and responsible for some of the best macro footage I have. Now, one more before we get to the divers, and this is a new one I got over Christmas. And as you can see, it is quartz, and it is a Shinola, but it's also a Mickey. And probably one of the best Mickeys you can get right now. So before you start commenting on you hate Shinola, I mean, come on, you'd know you'd wear it. Now, while I don't consider myself a Disney fanatic, I do have some in the family, and I did grow up in Southern California. And because of that, I did spend a fair amount of time at Disneyland growing up. So this does take me back and puts a smile on my face. Now, this watch is based on Shinola's Runwell line, and I think it is pretty well made. I just wish it had some better lume, especially on the hands. So let's move on to the divers. And I think it's worth pointing out before we get into this that when I started the channel, I only had one diver, and it was this one, which is a Citizen NY0040. I know typically everyone has an SKX, but when it was time to get a diver, I kind of went a different direction and got the Citizen, as it was sort of the SKX killer at the time. But overall, it's a great watch, and my only real complaint with it has been that this blue dial really looks black unless you get the appropriate light on it. Now, moving on, we have not only one, but two Vostok Amphibias, and they're both in the 420 style case, which personally I think is one of the most comfortable cases out there for Vostoks, and makes a great option for those that are looking for a smaller diver, as it's only 39mm wide. Now first, we have my orange Scuba Dude, which is one that I modded with this bezel, and I think it's appeared in numerous videos over the years. Which is then followed by the newer and pretty unusual fully loomed special edition Vostok. And what's unusual is that this does have a 24-hour dial and movement. They're both great watches, and really for the price, it's pretty tough to beat an Amphibia for just a tough all-around watch. Now, next up we have the Spinnaker Bradner, which is really the only Spinnaker I've kept long-term. Mostly because it's the most comfortable when it comes to size, and it really just has this great look for a great price. Although I do wish the lume was a bit better. Now, this is one I might sell in the future, as I've gotten a lot more compression-style watches since this one, and I don't necessarily need all of them. Which leads us to this watch, which is the Nodus Duality. This is one I pre-ordered and got last fall, and I've really been meaning to do a review on it. But honestly, I've been having a hard time writing it up, as I just keep changing my opinion on it. It's one where I've just fallen in and out of love repeatedly since owning it. So look forward to the review at some point, but the short version is that it's an extremely well made and very comfortable watch with just a couple of minor flaws. And as a side note, you might notice two watches that are missing from this list, which is the Helm Komodo and the Seiko Ice Monster, both of which I sold to get this watch. And looking back, I'm not sure I should have sold the Ice Monster, but it is what it is now. Next up is the NTH Tikuna, and this is also one I go back and forth on selling. I do like it, but I really haven't been wearing it quite as much, and I obviously have too many divers. Yet, I also don't have anything that looks quite like this, let alone it's really a fantastic size and case, and just kind of amazingly thin at 11.5mm. Over this last winter, on those colder days where I really needed a thicker coat, this was really the watch I grabbed most often. Which leads us to the Swiss watch company's Hulk, or Green Diver. And this is a watch I really didn't wear during those cold winter days. While I love this watch, and I still think it's one of the best values out there when it comes to the movement and the quality of the case, it is a bit big, and kind of too big to wear during winter. Yet, as I said, I do love it, and it is my only green watch. It's really just a great choice when you're looking for something that has a lot of presence. Which the same can be said for the next watch, which is a Zelos Bronze Swordfish. This is one of two bronze watches I have, and I think the patina here just looks fantastic with the blue bezel and dial. Not to mention, this is the watch that really proved to me that Zelos really deserves its reputation for quality and price. Which was then further established with this watch, Zelos Mako V3. And this is one I recently reviewed, and I absolutely love this watch. It's a great size, awesome lume, extremely comfortable, and really just a fantastic dial. The whirlpool effect is amazing and just really has to be seen. Overall, this is my second favorite diver, but it's a close call to number one. However, my favorite diver is still my burgundy Orient Kamasu. Now, I've had this for just over a year, and I'm actually thinking about doing a second look video on it. But the Kamasus in general are really just one of the best all-around affordable divers you can find. The bracelet is a bit blah, as it's your standard Orient bracelet, but otherwise this is a watch that's really hard to beat for the price. You have a good case, great lume, sapphire, and just a beautiful dial to look at. And I especially love this burgundy one. There really aren't too many watches out there with this color, let alone at this price. So this is one that's not going anywhere, and I might actually look at getting a strap code bracelet for the near future. But at the moment, I'm pretty happy on this strap I have it on. Now at some point, I'll have to address my most controversial diver, so might as well be now, and that's the Ginault Ocean Rover. I'm not really going to get into all the details as I don't think it's worth it, but I will say that I don't think the controversy will ever fully dissipate. But regardless of all that, this is still one hell of a well-made watch. And it may be an homage, or maybe super homage if you want to call it that, of a subby, but it's really exactly what I would want one to be, and especially with these sword hands rather than Mercedes. Now, since controversy likes controversy, we might as well follow that with my second most controversial diver, and that's the 5KX. And I should note that not only is the watch controversial, but so is calling it the 5KX, as I've lost count of how many times people have told me not to call it that. But regardless, the 5KXs are here and the SKXs are out. Now, while I may have gotten kind of an overpriced dud, I do think that they're a great entry-level dive style watch, especially if you get them for the right price. It's just that the MSRP and what they initially debuted at is pretty crazy. This is one I should sell, and the only reason I haven't yet is I keep thinking about modding it, but I really don't have the time for it, so I should probably just throw it up on eBay. Now, since we've talked about the controversial watches, we might as well follow that up with something legit, and there really isn't anything more legit than a Seiko turtle, especially if it's the Seiko Dark Knight turtle. As far as the channel goes, this is the most filmed watch I have, as I use this in pretty much every lume comparison video. But beyond that, this is a great watch, and it has one of my favorite dials, where the edges are almost this dark black enamel with this sunburst blue in the middle. It's really just beautiful, and while turtles are always a bit on the larger side when you look at specs, it is still one of the most comfortable watches I've ever worn. One of my most popular reviews is of the Seiko bottle cap, and I think that's a watch people wonder if I still have, but unfortunately I did sell it a while ago. Yet I do have a micro-brand spiritual successor of sorts with the Matthew & Sons Irukandji. And I do wish the price here was a little lower and the lume was a bit brighter, but otherwise it's a fantastic watch. Not only does it have this beautiful blue color, but it's just really well made and comfortable to wear. And this is another one for those that are looking for a smaller diver. And last, but certainly not least, we have a whole school of Phoiboses, or Phoibi. Here you have the Wavemaster, the GMT Eagle Ray, the Bronze Eagle Ray, and of course the Great Wall. All in all, great watches, yet I probably don't need all four of them, but I would have a hard time picking between them. The Wavemaster is probably the one I wear the least, but I really don't have anything else that looks quite like it. It's just a really good size, comfortable, and just awesome lume, not to mention some of the best bang for your buck out there. Honestly, you could probably say the same about all of them, but especially the GMT Eagle Ray. While the Glycine Airman is my preferred GMT, this is really just a great budget example, and one of the better compressor style watches I've run across. Not to mention, it just has a great look, which is why they sold out so quickly. Which leads us to the Bronze Eagle Ray, which is my second bronze watch, and between this and the Swordfish, I actually prefer the Eagle Ray. It's just a little bit more comfortable to wear, at least when you change out the straps. Not to mention, it just has a great classic look. And finally, we come to my favorite Phoibos of all, which is of course the Great Wall. Again, this is just one of those designs that's going to be hit or miss with people, and it's pretty much a hit with me. And for me, I think it's an extremely well-made and potentially better-made Seiko monster substitute. I've talked about the Great Wall multiple times, so I probably don't need to say much more about it. Well, there you have it. And to be honest, that isn't even quite everything. I have some other watches I keep around just for the channel, some of which are waiting to be reviewed, and some I just keep around for the sake of comparison. Not to mention a few inexpensive AliExpress watches I don't think are worth reselling. But let me know down below what you think about all of this. Not just what you like in the collection, but if you have any suggestions on what you think I should keep, maybe what you think I should add, and what you think I should definitely get rid of. And I have a feeling the Shinolas are going to be included a lot in that last one. But let me know, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for joining me.